Let's talk about the courage to be disliked. I think the top fears that control us are the social ones, the phobias, the anxieties relating to abandonment and ostracism, being embarrassed and humiliated, even violence, a bad reaction from other people. Fear reverse engineers those outcomes like embarrassment and humiliation and comes to the conclusion that any form of dislike or disapproval is a massive threat because it could lead to those outcomes. So it makes two assumptions. One is that those outcomes are definitely bad and harmful, and the other is that any form of disapproval will lead and escalate to those outcomes. And so it starts to see being disapproved of and being disliked as this huge threat, as this dangerous situation. So it starts to notice that dislike and disapproval are really emotional states, what I call the disses: disapproval, disappointment, disgust, disagreement, dislike. All these disses start to become the focal point of this fear. How do we prevent these emotional states from happening in other people? I don't know about you, but it was incredibly painful for me to acknowledge that most of my life decisions, including huge decisions like what I did for a career and who I hung out with and where I lived, were based primarily on preventing these emotions from happening in people. That I was a slave to this fear of just avoiding dislike, that I'd choose huge parts of my life dedicated to just preventing those emotions. What a waste. What a waste of a life. If you can tolerate the risk of being disliked and tolerate the actual event of being disliked, of people having those disses emotions, then you're free. Your opportunities expand 1,000-fold. There's so much more you can do with your life if you're free from being controlled by this fear. Now, it doesn't mean you have to become fearless. As I've talked about before, bravery is not the absence of fear. You can still be afraid of the consequences of people disliking you. But if you can go ahead and accept those consequences and let them happen, then your range of options just explodes and your life goes from a limited prison to just an open wilderness where anything can happen. So in my mind, there really is no fear that's more important to overcome for your quality of life than the fear of what other people will think of you. Notice the link your mind makes where it thinks any form of dislike or disapproval equals harm. Right? You react to it viscerally. Oh my God, they're going to judge me. As if something bad's going to happen when they do. When's the last time you challenged this? When's the last time you said, okay, well, what will happen? Where are the injuries? Exactly. Now, some of you will have actual experiences. You'll have, a bad childhood where being disliked got you bullied and beaten up and everything like that. And so you'll believe that that's going to happen again. But you're an adult now, living in an adult world. Is this still true? Is it still true that being even slightly disapproved of, or having someone slightly disagree with you, or having someone a bit disgusted by your opinion will actually hurt you physically? That it's actually something you can't endure? When's the last time you challenged that belief? Because I'll tell you right now, I get hate every day. No injuries, no scars, not even a bruise. So if you're so sure that being disapproved of and disliked will lead to harm, why am I unharmed? Read my YouTube comment section. Why am I unharmed? When someone feels one of those disses around you, and even though you try to prevent it from happening, it still happens occasionally. What actually happens most of the time? I mean, right now, even if you're a total people pleaser and you do your best to make people like you, there's somebody out there, somebody you know and work with or hang out with, who hates the fact that you're a people pleaser. They disapprove of that. They just like you for it. What injuries have you incurred as a result of that? I mean, no matter how much of a good person you think you are, there are people out there who don't like you. There are people out there who disagree with you. You interact with them on a daily basis. There are people you walk by in the street and they just look at you and just go, ugh. And they might not even mention it to you, but that happens. You know it must happen because you do it to other people. Does it always result in total abandonment? Does it destroy all of your relationships permanently? Do you die or get injured? Does anything actually fucking happen most of the time? No. You just fear that something will happen. But most of the time, you're fine. Put it this way, even if things have happened to you in the past, the fact that you're watching this video means it didn't kill you. Have you ever been disliked by someone who you actually really want to be in your life? And I don't mean for insecure reasons like you're desperate for love, but someone whose personality you actually really loved. How often does that happen when they've disliked you? I'm not saying it's hypothetical. It has happened to you. I've had people I like dislike me. But what I've found is it's incredibly rare that someone who's a good fit for me, someone I really admire and respect, also has a lot of feelings towards me. Most of the time, when somebody dislikes me and hates what I have to say and is disgusted by my opinions and stuff, when I look at that person objectively, I think I wouldn't really want them in my life either, frankly. I mean, the reason they feel those feelings is because we're so fucking different in our belief systems. I don't actually have a huge attraction towards keeping that person in my life. Now, there was a time when I did feel that kind of need to keep people in my life, but it wasn't because they had a great personality. It's just because I was desperate for friends and love. If you remove that desperation, those people who dislike you, do you really care that they're not in your life? Are you actually, if you had people who loved you for who you were, if you had a tight circle of people who approved of everything you said, would you need to include this person as well? Or could you live without them? If being liked is so important to you, just think of this. If only 0.1% of the world liked you and approved of you, that would be 75,000 people. I want you to just take a moment to think of how long it would take you to meet and get to know 75,000 people. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it in a lifetime. There is more people who like you in the world than you could possibly meet. Because I don't care how low your self-esteem is, you've got to admit at least 0.1% of people feel something positive towards you, right? And that's being really conservative. I don't care how much of a freak you are, the number's actually higher than that. But even if the number is that low, it's still too many people for you to meet in your entire life. So you're worried about a scarcity of total abandonment? If you're busy meeting lots of people, you're going to find that 0.1%. And you only need to find 3 or 4 people to have an awesome social circle. So everybody else can dislike you as long as only a few don't. So what are you worried about? Notice that your fear is actually more about the real in-the-moment conflict. It's not so much people disliking you and you being abandoned. That's just the catastrophizing. What you're really afraid of is somebody actually expressing a diss to your face in the moment and having to handle that. Right? That's the thing you're actually so terrified of. And yet you've had that happen in your life. You've been around it when it's happened. You clearly didn't die from it. You clearly endured it and survived. It might have been very emotionally uncomfortable for you. But why was it emotionally uncomfortable for you? Did something actually happen to you? Or were you uncomfortable because you simply did not want this to happen to you? If someone throws lots of insults at me, but it was in Chinese and I don't know what they're saying, would I feel offended and hurt and rejected? No, I'll just feel a bit confused. I have to actually interpret what somebody says to me for me to be hurt by it, right? Especially when it's just words. So for someone to dislike me and that actually hurt me, it's something in my interpretation process that actually hurts me. I have to not want them to say stuff. I have to want them to say something else. And as long as I don't have those wants, I'm unaffected. One of my black clients, I asked him, if a member of the KKK thought that you were a dickhead, would that bother you? He said, no, of course not. I'm like, well, what difference does it make if one of your friends thinks you're a dickhead? I mean, if someone thinks you're a dickhead, what difference does it make who it is? It's just the story you tell yourself in your head. I want that person to like me. I don't care if that person does. What if you think, hey, if someone dislikes me, then that rules them out from my life? That's actually a helpful piece of information. No harm done. Of course, all of this won't make your fear go away. So let's get practical. Start small. Whatever level of disagreeableness that you currently sit at, just ramp it up a little bit. Just a tiny little bit that you feel that you can tolerate. Show a little bit more of your true opinions. Disagree a little bit more. Argue a little bit more than you usually would. Express opinions that you wouldn't usually express. Show preference for things that you would usually hide. It can be tiny. The example I often use is like all of your friends want to go out for Chinese food and you just say, I'd rather have pizza. Now, you might end up going for Chinese food, but just saying I'd rather have pizza, just being willing to rock the boat a little bit more than you usually do. A lot of this is about you showing the disses, you being disagreeable, disapproving, disgusted, disliking. You'll find that often people who are afraid of rejection are actually more afraid of rejecting. They're more afraid of delivering the disses than receiving them. They just tell themselves a story that they're afraid of rejection, but they're actually okay with not being liked. What they hate is being seen as someone who dislikes somebody else. So if you can just practice showing a little more of the disses yourself, the general topic of disagreeableness and disapproval, then you'll find that your tolerance for these level of emotions will slowly increase, and you'll realize They're not things to be afraid of. They're just uncomfortable. And if you're willing to endure that discomfort, you get more options in life. You get better quality of life. You get better friends, better job. You get to travel and try those things you've always wanted to try. You just have to pay the price of somebody going, as a reaction. That's it. That's fucking it. So your parents are disappointed that you dropped out of university. That's all they are, is disappointed. Nothing happens. They just sit there being disappointed, and you go off on a better career path. And that just sits like that, and that's it. You survive. If you realize that, like, you can't stop the disappointment from happening, but it doesn't actually hurt you as long as you're okay with it happening, you're free. You can start by choosing one person who you're actually okay with disliking you. If you can find that one person and commit to being fully honest with them, right? Let them dislike you just to train, just like a sparring dojo of some kind. So, okay, I know that person doesn't like me, so I'm going to go and talk to them and share my ideas on politics with them just so I can spend some time being in the presence of someone who disapproves of me, right? Just training the endurance of that emotional state, right? It all pays off in the end. If you can endure the extreme discomfort of being hated by everyone in the room, then you are socially free. And that's how you find the room where everybody loves you. Express your preferences, but don't try to manage their reaction. Okay, when somebody is in one of the disses, you can see they disagree with you or they dislike you, just let them. All right, don't fight back. Don't try to change their mind or convince them. You don't have to keep arguing with them if you've hit your level of discomfort for the day and you're just like, that's enough. That's fine. You can even back down from the argument, but don't try to make them feel better about it. Don't try to change their mind. Just sit in that emotion. Think of it this way. At some point, they've got to go to lunch. At some point, they'll need to take a shit. They've got to sleep sometime. This is not going to last forever. Just endure it until they need to go do something else, and then it's over. Now, obviously, there isn't a single video or podcast out there that's just going to solve your fear on this. But if you work with me for an extended period of time, you can get to a place where this is really in the past for you. So get in touch, dan@brojo.org, and we'll talk about how to become someone who isn't afraid of what other people think of them.